Alright, so we're talking about Minari or Minari. I'm not Korean, so I don't know how to pronounce words that aren't anything, really. Just, anyway, so yes, I finally watched it, especially after the Golden Globes, and it won for Best Foreign Language, even though it's an American film, and, you know, yes, it was majority of the dialogue was Korean, but I think people even made the case like about how like Inglorious Bastards was a movie that was like predominantly like in German, but it's still like, it's fine. You know, it's pretty much being like it's the Chris Rock thing. It's all right if it's all white. You know. Anyway, so this movie, I did not cry. As apparently a lot of people did watching this, but it definitely hit home. It was like, oh yeah, this is that like immigrant kind of story. As someone who's child of immigrants, I'm just like, well, this is what I've dealt with, and sadly still continue to deal with at times. But of course, I recommend this movie. It's fucking good as shit. You know, I don't know about spoilers. Because it's not really spoilers, just like this happens and they talk about it. But one of the things that happened in the movie that made me just go, war flashbacks kind of stuff, is there's a part where the couple goes to church. The family, it's just a couple. It's just a couple. Where the family goes to church, and after church there's like, I don't know, like they're all having like punch and pie or something. I don't know when the last time I was at church, so I don't fucking know. We didn't have punch and pie when I went to church. What the fuck, man? Anyway, so, like, a little girl goes up to the sister, and she goes, stop me if I say something in your language, and then proceeds to, says noises that sound whatever Asian language. And I was just there like, I had, like, that happened a lot, especially, where I went to school, there wasn't that many, East Asian kids. There were, some Southeast Asian kids, but a lot of them were claiming to be, a different race, so they wouldn't be bullied, but, I look like this, so I couldn't really claim to be something else to, lessen the blow, thank you, phone. And so, I've had people do that, especially in, middle school, Ooh, tinnitus is hitting me all of a sudden. Anyway, you want to stop that? Jesus, it's like a truck brake. Anyway, yeah, I had, kids do that thing where they make the sound, and I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck you doing. And then there was, a little boy who went up to the son, and just straight up goes, why is your face so flat? And I was like, I mean, for real, but at the same time, fuck you. It's like, god damn it. Also, they're in the South. They're in Arkansas. I'm having, some fucking Ace Ventura hair going on here. Yeah, they're in the South. They moved from California to Arkansas. Choices. I get it because they want to have, the farmland and, do the American dream thing of, starting from scratch and all that shit. Because that's what this whole movie is about, is, they were in San Francisco, in California. Were they in San Francisco, or am I just making up the San Francisco part because they're just that Asian? But they were in California, but then they're like, let's go here because there's a plot of land and the soil's the best and all that whatever shit, I guess. And, they're in the fucking South in the 80s, and I'm just like, fuck. Yeah, when I heard they were, when the husband and wife go to, the chicken factory, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, where they're, sexing, chickens, and they're like, let's give it an Arkansas welcome. The moment they said I was like, oh god. So there's the regular racism that happens that probably would have you would have seen if it was set in California or New York or whatever, that kind of shit. But then it's like, anyway, we're gonna put you in the South, and it's like, So the whole movie is their story of just like trying to like get this farm going, and being like really the not the only Koreans, but like within their church, they're the only Asians. There's some Koreans and somewhat in like the chicken coop that the husband and wife work at and all that shit. You kind of see a little bit of like how like the children interact with one another, like a little bit, but not that much. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more interactions with the siblings. I feel like the daughter was just kind of there to be like, we have a second child. Um, like she wasn't there much. Of course, like the main character really is the little boy, and you kind of like, see how like in a sense his like life through his little eyes kind of stuff, and his little cute little cowboy boots that he wears. That's like literally half his body when he puts them on. And then like grandma comes to live, because again, how fucking Asian is that? Is like you go to the new country, you start to bring the family over. First person's usually grandma, that kind of stuff. Parts with grandma was like that, like not in a bad way, but just kind of again war flashbacks to either my interaction with my grandma, my interaction with just like my relatives, like non-English speaking relatives and all that stuff, or whatever. Not just like oh, like how awkward, when there's like a language barrier thing, or they end up saying something that they shouldn't be saying in front of strangers, and you're just like, it's like, oh my god. Um, but yeah, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. It didn't run too long, what I'm saying? Like it also wasn't too short. The length was good. Um, Steven Yeun like does an amazing job. Because most of the stuff I seen him in, he tends to play like the stereotype of like the nerdy Asian guy in like roles and stuff, and obviously it's all English speaking, so he's just like that kind of stuff. And the fact that like he plays a dad, and also it's his dialogue is like 95% in Korean. I mean, there was the movie Burning, but it was just more like modern times, and it's like the dialogue was very in that movie, he was interacting with people like his age, so there was no like dad feel from him kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just, yeah. There's a part I'm like all over the place, but there's a part in the movie where like him and the wife character are arguing, and again war flashbacks to my parents, and I'm just like like I was just like the kids are like running back to their room, and I'm like in my room watching this movie, like I can't go anywhere. I'm here. I can't. Do I take the computer and put it in the other room? Why did I freaking get Midwestern? Like, oh, they take it to the other room over there, don't you know? What the fuck was that? Jesus. Alright, I guess I'll go to spoilers. 1, 2, 3 spoilers. So, I don't know how much I would want to say about spoilers, because it's just like, I don't know, like, so with a story like this where it's like the family, there's the American dream and all that stuff, stuff's gonna go bad. You know things aren't gonna go their way. So the whole time, like, the dad decides, instead of paying some dude to help him like look for like the water well for like the whatever, what, irrigation, is that the word I'm looking for? Jesus, this is what happens when you don't like leave the house often to interact with people and speak more words out loud. Yeah, so to deal with that, he decides to do it himself, which later backfires, and he has to kind of like, you know, pay, like, do it again. I mean, end up paying the guy to help him with it, which again feels so close to home, because like my dad took shortcuts with stuff, and now I'm literally paying for it, so that's great. I'm just like, cool, wait, we have to replace that, how much is that? Yeah, do you have like a finance program? Okay, I'll sign up for that. Oh, that's also broken? Okay, how much is that? Okay, I think I can pay you all that right now. Okay, like that's, that's what I'm going through. But yeah, so like that happens, and then like having grandma there, and then like grandma's already really old and like pretty, not really senile, but just kind of like she's grandma, just that very Asian grandma, and you're just like, you're so great, grandma, but at the same time, I need you to dial it back, And there's a part in the movie where the little boy says, "You're not a real grandma," and it's so crazy. Like for me, like I was like I really felt that because I never understood that growing up because like watching TV, watching all that stuff, grandma, like the kid says, you bake, you do like all that stuff that you think grandmas do. And like my grandma never did that. My grandma didn't bake. I mean, like she did the grandma thing of like, come eat, blah, blah, blah. But it's never like, here, let me make you something like that. It was just kind of like, there's the fridge. Just go, just rummage, And then grandma will do the thing of like, you're really fat. Have you eaten? Like, wait, what? I mean, my mom's at that age now where she's like, I think you've gained weight. Anyway, I made you something. And it's just like, and I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom. It's 9 p.m. Just like, thanks. It's like served on top of a trash can lid. Mother always gives us best. So, anyway, so yeah, there was that, like, I was like, oh man, like, I feel, like, seen, I feel valid and all that stuff, because I've never actually really had that conversation with anyone about the whole, like, grandma doesn't feel like grandma, or I guess in a sense of a Western idea of grandma, and then, like, I wasn't really surprised when, like, later into the film, that grandma ended up having a stroke, because that kind of happens. It's fucked up to say, but like I had like a great grandma, Well, she's a great grandma, so you can imagine she was really fucking old. When I was like in my early teens or something, and like she was functioning, but she had a stroke, and it was exactly like this grandma. Like she had a stroke, and then she was still functioning, but she had like the one like derpy arm, and I was like, oh my god, like just again more flashbacks. Yeah, it was. I was like, oh my god, this feels too much. Anyway, so I guess I'll just kind of like wrap it up and say like towards the end, um, which again just so Asian of like, cool, grandma is like recently a stroke victim. Instead of being like, let's just bring grandma with us so we keep an eye on her when we go like do our stuff. No, we'll just keep her home and she can still function. And then because they burn their garbage and all that stuff because they're on like farmland. It's not really like the Department of Sanitation doesn't really drive by to pick up the trash bins, that kind of stuff. So they burn garbage, and then grandma is like burning garbage, and then she piles it up like really high, and then there's wind, and then the fields kind of dry, and it just like burns the barn and all that stuff. And of course the dad, like literally at the end of the movie, it becomes this like everything's starting to come up Millhouse with the family, like okay, grandma survived her stroke and everything's starting, to like right itself. They found a Korean supermarket that they can start selling their produce at. They're like everything's coming up Millhouse, and then the barn burns, and it was just like. Like you see your American dream just like literally burn in front of you, and it's like, oh my god, and then of course the movie kind of like does like a happy ending thing where they kind of start all over again because that's the American way. You gotta pull yourself up from your bootstrap, that kind of stuff. But it's just so like, because you're like, okay, like they were arguing, like the wife didn't really want to move to Arkansas, and she didn't feel like she's good enough to do the job. The daughter and son were, in a sense, in the beginning, like they were kind of just there. The daughter just kind of exists in this movie. The son, because he is like the little main character, you follow him, you kind of like understand his little kid thought process and all that stuff. And then like things are slowly get better, like their marriage is starting to like, be a little better. The kids are starting to like appreciate and understand grandma more, especially after something so like, abrupt that happened and all that shit. And so things are coming up Millhouse, and they like again like they found the Korean like market, and they were like, oh my god, like one of us, I don't feel so like isolated, da 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 and all that shit. And then fucking the stuff burns, and it's just like, I worked for that, I mean, it's like I feel like that normally anyway, like I do my art shit, and then just nothing. And then I don't get any jobs. You know, it's like I worked so hard for nothing, you know. But yeah, like I said, this is this movie's great. This movie's amazing, and I feel like even if I like again, I don't know, like I'm taking this movie very personally because like I'm East Asian, I'm also a child of immigrants, and like I said, like the story is very relatable to me. But I feel like even if you aren't like I feel like well, if you're a person of color, you would definitely, you know, especially if you know your parents don't like, especially if your parents like English isn't your first language. I know you could definitely relate to this. I also feel like if you're like a person or color, wow. If you're a person or a color, if you're a person of color, just in general, even if like your family just speaks English and you don't, there's no language barrier and all that stuff, but you would still understand the type of like prejudice and shit that you know when like the characters went through in the movie, and I also feel like just you know I don't know if you're just like a straight up 100% white person with like generations here, if this would hit you as hard. You know, I can see that like you can like, oh, I get it. But like you don't really get it because you haven't really faced it. You know, I'm oppressed. No, you're not, Craig. You know, like that kind of stuff where it's like, okay, you watch it and you go, oh, I feel your pain, but do you? But do you, Craig? You know. Anyway, yeah. So that was Minari, all that stuff. Like I said, it's good.